If Carson Wentz isn't ready to go the first month of the season and Nick Foles is traded, why are people assuming that the Eagles won't win football games? It's funny because we kind of thought the same thing when Carson Wentz got hurt, that the Eagles wouldn't win the Super Bowl, and look what happened. Let me turn my head a little bit to the left just so you could see it. It happened. They won the Super Bowl. By the way, I was one of those people that didn't think they had a chance after Carson Wentz got hurt. So there you go. I'm not making the same mistake twice, which brings me to this topic. There's no reason why the Eagles would still not be able to go 3-1 their first month, even if their freaking quarterback was Nate Sudfeld. How about that? Yeah, there's a hot take. 3-1 with Nate the Great. And here's how it might happen if they indeed go that route. They might actually sign a backup like a Josh McCown or a Ryan Fitzpatrick, but we'll see. Let's hypothetically for this video, let's say Nate Sudfeld is our quarterback. All right. I've seen this formula work before. Andy Reid, whenever Donovan McNabb got hurt, a backup would come in and always prosper because the Eagles were a complete team. They had a great offensive line, a great defense, pretty good running attack. And the running attack now is better than it was back then. So, whenever A.J. Feely had to step in, he won games. Let's think, 2002, he went 4-1 as a starter. Andy Reid would kind of dumb down the offense a little bit, make it more conservative, a lot of screens. They would win primarily using their defense. 2006, Jeff Garcia stepped in. 5-1 as a starter during the regular season, won a playoff game against the Giants before losing to the Saints in the divisional round. So why am I bringing this up? Well, Andy Reid was able to mold those quarterbacks the same way that Doug Peterson molded Nick Foles for the postseason. The implementation of the RPOs. You look at the Super Bowl, how Nick Foles is getting the ball out real quick and using those touch passes that he's pretty damn good at throwing, by the way. He's got great touch on his ball. So RPOs and the touch throws, and before that run, we remember how much Nick Foles struggled. He doesn't go through his reads. It's a struggle for him, going through his progressions, throwing with anticipation. When he's able to not think out there and just play, that's when he prospers, and we saw what he did during that magical Super Bowl run, man. My God, what Doug Peterson was able to do with Nick Foles. So he's got to figure out what Nate Sudfeld's strengths would be and cater to them. But at the same time, the Eagles had a top 5 rushing attack. They've got the best offensive line in the league. And they've got a top 3 to 5 defense. So you could win with a style where you run the ball, you limit the possessions, and you play defense. This is how they beat the Falcons. You remember the Oakland game. Defense forced 5 second-half turnovers to win that game because the offense struggled. Nick Foles sucked in that game. The other thing to keep in mind, too, is, the offensive line really, really rose to the occasion once Carson Wentz went down. They only allowed 2 sacks all postseason, which was the least out of all the qualified playoff teams. That includes the teams that went 1 and done. 2 sacks in 3 games. That's extraordinary. Nick Foles was barely not even touched. That's when Big V took the next step in his career because he had a pretty damn good playoff run. Now, in the Super Bowl, I did think he got beaten sometimes by James Harrison, but the way he shut down Everson Griffin was very, very impressive. And to see the climb that he made from the San Francisco game on, his San Francisco game, he had struggles where he would get overextended a lot. He would get beaten across his face, inside. But man, what can you say about him and the way he closed the season? So that's the key to success right there. Running the ball with a top 5 rushing attack, using your offensive line, which is dominant defense. And you got to take into consideration the weapons that you have as well. A guy like Alshon Jeffrey, a guy that you can just kind of throw the ball up to and let him go get it. A guy like Zach Ertz, who creates a lot of separation with his great route running. Remember what he did to Harrison Smith on that out and up route with, 30 seconds to go in the first half? Eagles were able to add another field goal before the break. So the way I look at this, they could still win games with Nate Sudfeld. And in all honesty, they'd probably go sign a veteran quarterback who's probably better than Nate Sudfeld, but there you go. The other thing I want to get into here, too, is this assumption that Carson Wentz is going to get hurt again. A lot of people want to bring up RG3, stuff like that. Well, first of all, Robert Griffin III was built like a goddamn toothpick. All right? Skin and bones, that guy. His body was not going to be able to handle the workload in the NFL. If you want to compare Carson Wentz, I think a fair comparison would actually be Cam Newton, because these guys are like 6'5", 240 pounds, built out of stone. And the ACL injury, in all honesty, was kind of a freak thing. It was a non-contact injury. He wasn't hurt on the hit. He was hurt before the hit. Now, I would change up the style just a little bit. All right, but I also don't want to take away what makes Carson Wentz special. And that's what he can do, escaping the pocket and taking off and gaining yardage. The way you change up his game is to simply say to him, hey, Carson, how about you not go after a defender and slide around the goal line when there's defenders near? That's the only change I would make, but I'm not taking away his escape ability. I'm not doing that. That's what makes him special. You don't take away special. So those are just some of my thoughts about how the Eagles could still win games. And worst case scenario, they go 2-2 the first month instead of 3-1. Now, the other thing that has to happen, they do have to get a little bit lucky with the schedule. So they wouldn't have to play all the great teams right out of the chute. You know, because the schedule obviously is tougher next year. You got to play Minnesota, Carolina, Atlanta, Houston. On the road, you got to play the Rams. You got to play New Orleans, Tennessee. You got Jacksonville, London. So it will be more difficult next season. This is going to be a better team because everybody's coming back from injury. So those are just my thoughts. And that's that. Take care.